Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. May I request you all to take your seats as we move on to our next session of the day. This will be a presentation on the framework for BIM rollout brought to you by the Confederation of Digital Construction Practitioners. May I request our guest speakers to come on stage and do the honors. First, I would invite Mr. Swaraj Dattagupta, President, the Confederation of Digital Construction Practitioners India, and Mr. Sunil Joshi, General Secretary, the Confederation of Digital Construction Practitioners India. Please, sir. Over to you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And just to give a brief intro of me, I'm basically a civil engineer, but of the era of slide rules or the T-square and Z-square in the drafting and the probably punch cards in the computing area. So from there, it's an opportunity for me, or rather I'm blessed that I've been a part of the change every stages, whether it is from the drafting to the computer-aided design and drafting or computer-aided manufacturing, and also subsequently a change in the today's information world. So that is the era and still continuing, and I wish to continue. So with this thing, CDCPIndia, which is the Confederation of Digital Construction Practitioners India, is humbled to become the part of this conference. I think we are the right independent, democratic and representative body of the entire supply chain, including the technology OEMs, professionals, academia, to be the part of the national development and endeavor for the digitalize or digital. That means when I say digital, it is digital, digitize and digitalize both infrastructure lifecycle management as a part of the PM's Vikshit Bharat by 2047. And CDCPIndia, by name itself, it suggests that it confederate with the existing bodies engaged in and around AECO activity, that is industry bodies, the professional bodies, policy-making bodies, academia and delivery partners, etc., guiding them to the strategic level. CDCPIndia is also India's chapter of Building Smart International, and they promote that transparent digital transformation process, emphasizing on open BIM culture. So this is the first part of this confederate, and the practitioners of digital construction having the substantial professional experience in various aspects, from the technology to process to asset management and further to the chemistry of the various stakeholders. So that is what is our basic fundamental. And we have come together to form an impartial, not-for-profit and democratic society to inspire and collaborate to advance digitally enabled processes and technologies in India with the motto of inclusive data democratization. So that is our motto, serving for the AECO community at large to give back to the community with the strength of our collective wisdom to inspire the 4 stages in 4 stages. So collective wisdom, when I say that our average experience is around 30 years, then we have all the board members put together something around 250 man years of experience. That is what we wanted to give it back to the, and this is the only organization which can really represent the entire community of AECO. That's what I think it is the right opportunity for us to be a part of this. And these 4 stages, first is the digitize. That means when we saw that content to be graphical as well as that asset information should be brought in. That's what I was going on mentioning, that we should talk about that information and the information is the basis of it, which is not only the graphical information, but also the asset information, which is mostly required. And it is not a drafting, it is really engineering through that using the tools. And that graphical and asset information need to be done the first using the respective applicable tools and technologies, which normally is called as BIM today. And second is that democratize the data information through the common pool, which is a common data environment, accessible to all stakeholders at all stages, following a digitalized process with real-time on-time visibility, which is very important, because once you are doing that on-time and real-time, that should be visible through the customized dashboard. The third is that providing for an integrated asset management, that is what is going to really take the ROI of the investments, whatever people are going to make. The asset management and operations, a shift from the project mindset or project paradigm to the asset paradigm. Because once we are not talking that, we are talking about infrastructure project, it stops at the delivery. It should be going to forward, it should be probably talked about infrastructure assets. So that has to be extended using that same data information from the pool of the information pool, which is CDE, Common Data Environment. Last and the very important part is that move towards that integrated infrastructural lifecycle management, which is ILM, in commoditizing it in the similar lines of the project lifecycle management. So this is what, and it can take it to that DFMA, which is the design for manufacturing and assembly, which is the commoditizing the entire construction industry. That's what we are looking at the very, very visionary level. So these 2 days of conference may be aimed at inspiring the public sector infrastructure owners to become smarter and upskilling them towards it. But we feel that the government and public sector, being the infrastructure asset, not the projects, sponsors, the larger vision should be to implement BIM process, which is the digitalization, because the government, I consider them as the sponsors and who will be managing that information, and who should be more understanding the digitalization, not the digitization, which is the content creation or content. And digitalization is breaking that all the silos, and remain in managing. Managing the digital information through common data environment in the project delivery and in the medium term, and the BIM process for operation and asset management in the long term. So whereas the digitization shall remain in the forte of the supply chain, which we are in the private sector, and the capacity building for authoring the digital information, the built environment shall be the major responsibility for this private sector. So with this, I think I will hand over to Sunil, but I will introduce some of our colleagues who are here. Dr. Venkata, already you have seen, he's one of our board members. And Mr. P.R. Surendra Babu, he is our board member. And he is also the similar experience of mine. He's been in various capacities in Larsen and Toubro, design, project management, and international operations also. Mrs. Sonali Dopte, who is the Chief Strategy Officer from Excelizon and our treasurer and the board member. And she is 30 years experience in the various, she is basically an architect. And Sunil Joshi, I think, is coming here, and he is the CEO and Executive Director of Digitra, 20 years of experience in ASU industry, and has instrumental for re-engineering for business promotions for various BIM and digitalization related technologies. Thank you very much, and over to Sunil.
Thanks, Dada. While we transition, we will just show you a very quick video introduction about us. Good afternoon, everyone. Darshan, how much time do I have? Okay, great. So I'll try to wrap it up soon. Thank you so much, and it's a great privilege, to come here and talk to all of you. We are a young startup, for the initiative that we are doing with a lot of old people. It took us 3 years to conceive this team together and got ourselves registered, somewhere in 21, 22, I think June we got our trust certification. That was the first time when we spoke to Niti and initiated our discussions with Building Smart as well. And, the whole purpose of bringing back in our all professional capacities, all our board members are doing great projects, bringing a lot of experience from India and international markets. But the whole purpose that we wanted to kind of bring this knowledge, know-how, and also unite the community, because we're finding the gap or an absence of a platform where community can come together and collaborate, and that's where the CDCP was born. I saw a matured version of this slide. I think this was something which we discussed earlier, and a lot of feedback went in back, and this was when we started looking at national scale digitization from our perspective, bringing our experience together. We saw that a lot of visible elements of any digitalization project or initiatives, including standards, implementation frameworks, capacity buildings, engaging users, working on use cases. We saw some fantastic use cases from some of the team members and government bodies who talked about railway projects and using BIM, 4D, 5D, different use cases. Now, these are all floating elements, but when we look at from a national perspective, there are additional things that comes up in terms of like data security. Common data environment, we talked about, if it's cheap, if it's easy, it's good. But ultimately, the questions that most of us should be asking is where the data is going, where the data is hosting, how the data is being accessed. A data in a fragmented, kind of condition is not an asset, but the way we bring data in more organized format, make it more usable, that becomes an asset, and that asset can be utilized in multiple assets, and there are IP attached to it. So it's very important to understand that. Also, we spoke about 30% of the contribution that India is making to the, to the global BIM content development requirements, and essentially, probably that put us as a very unique condition where, because of wage arbitrage, the country has, and I heard Abhishek talking about how do we take this 30% to 60%. So it's a double opportunity that India has right now, not only just to look at our own requirement, but how do we do the capacity building where, globalization, the digitalization is a global need today. One of the slides that Abhishek showed in terms of how low we are in terms of the digitization on the construction industry, in terms of the index that is there as compared to the other industries. And looking at that, there is a global demand. So even if we increase from 30 to 60, the demand will increase continuously. It's about what do we do very uniquely to attract that particular talent in India that we will produce to work for Indian projects and do that balancing. And that's going to be a unique challenge for us. Specifically giving an example, one of the projects, like a metro project, it's like few years back, took up a mandate and one of the software was mandated. The cost of that software in probably US or Europe would be 1/38th of the salary of a typical drafting resource. So typically $50,000-$60,000 kind of a thing, and that software would cost say $2,000. When I bring that particular cost in India, $2,000 is 1.6 lakhs. That comes to about 25% of my salary cost of an average drafting resource. Now dynamics are different. Now if you put a condition where you mandate certain things, and when you are mandating it, you are not thinking about the disruption that you are doing in the supply chain, then that particular thing will bring in more resistance. And that is where, after a lot of research, after a lot of thinking, we came up with an India strategy, which I'm going to talk about in terms of why it's a strategy, why it's a framework that can be used as a filter to, to kind of screen any of the policy or a strategic initiative that you want to take further. In the interest of time, just wanted to put up these two slides together. We were talking about capacity building, and most of the time when we look at capacity, there could be a defined framework in which we are looking at capacity. We might have to change our lenses of looking at our capacity. Innovation can happen in any way. If you look at the typical example of that fellow in terms of converting his bicycle into an electrical, vehicle and using that for his own consumption, now his needs are done. But he has used his own resources in a very different way because he cannot afford an expensive electric bike. Now, he could do that only because there is some kind of an inspiration to do better. There is some kind of a motivation why he wanted to do that. Even if he can't afford it, he wanted to figure out with the resources that he has to achieve that goal. And same thing here, to move billion masses, this is like national scale digitalization in the infrastructure is like a revolution in itself. We saw this particular picture, but this was our war cry during the COVID times. This one action brought the whole nation together. And that's where, when we were thinking about the India strategy, we were also looking at in terms of what war cry can we give to this particular initiative of national scale infrastructure digitalization. And that's where the whole India strategy was evolved. Specifically, India strategy is a framework, and that can be applied. It doesn't apply to only India, it can be adopted by any country. When we are looking at promoting globalization, advancing on the globalization, on the digitalization needs, we are thinking global, because that's where we will be perfect. If we just think of our products and services to be very, very domestic, we will never be able to kind of scale up ourselves to the global scale, global standards. And that is where inspiring community, the national mandate, democratization of data, incentivizing the implementation, and providing the right kind of aid. If you put up all these things together, then it works like a perfect combination for any digitalization initiative. I will refer to the example given by Ms. Sally in the morning, where she says, she said, in the BIM process, it's easy to do the changes during the design stages, because doing changes in the build stages is costly. It's a very true statement. But now you look at the design stakeholders in the whole ecosystem. Are we increasing work for them? If the answer is yes, are we incentivizing them? So when you look at any digitalization initiative, there will be some bunch of people who would be on the beneficiary side of it. They would be simulating the data, they would be consuming the data, and that data would add up to a lot of business efficiency. But there will be a chunk of the stakeholder economy, ecosystem, who would probably be burning more hours, who would be burning more money, and are we doing something to incentivize that? And this is where a balance is required. Now, we also spoke about the aid part of it, and we have some sessions coming in on the standards. Last month, we had a very interesting workshop at IIT Bombay, where Casey, who is the president and chair of Building Smart UK, he was there, and he is one of the key member, vice chair of NEMA, which was the UK BIM Alliance, and one of the bodies that probably helped building up a lot of standards and BIM standards, which ultimately resulted in ISO 19650. I had a question to him. I said, we have developed a BIM standard, and I'll give a very simple layman example so we can understand, and I'll probably relate it to India. If I look at an Indian estimation gentleman or an estimation engineer, he follows IS 1200, which specify how I will measure a floor, how I will measure my deductions, and how I will do the calculations of the quantities in my project. Now, we are extracting BIM-based quantities. is IS 1200 or any equivalent international standard also embracing the digital aspects into that particular standard? We are intending to build up a new standard, but how this new standard is getting integrated well into our existing standards. Same thing on IS, I think 962. It's an existing architectural drafting standard in India. Now with BIM, our drafting standards are getting enhanced. And this standard is existent since 1989. Now, the digitalization related aspects should be integrated into this. And this is where even, what I learned from KC was even UK is trying to probably now look at and cross-reference the standards. And that is where when we work together and when we are working as a team, we are exchanging the learning, this is where the new thoughts from the overall community, the global community can come together and weave a more efficient framework so ultimate user or the stakeholder is not confused. Somebody may say, okay, should we use BIM modeler? I heard arguments and discussions related to BIM modeler and drafting resources, but look at from a core industry perspective, we are in the business. There is a drafting resource, the moment he changes his designation to BIM modeler on LinkedIn, he gets a call and his salary is hiked up by 50%. So there is a very different kind of demand driving that particular sales aspects of BIM. So here we have to bring about the neutralization in terms of basing that understanding where structural consultant, architects, quantity surveyors, project managers, construction managers, facility managers, they are absorbing core candidates, and those subjects and those professions and those standards are well equipped with the digital needs. So we can express more details and we can talk about it later. Just to give you some more ideas before my time goes out. One of the initiatives that we did together was, in limited capacity, we were working with a lot of constraints when we started, including funding constraints, because we did not want to take up money from a lot of, companies. So to maintain our neutrality, we went ahead and that's where, today it took us some time to get into a place where we have kind of started getting a good community traction. And it was an overwhelming support. We did not expect that the industry will support us so well. We did Digital Built India last month, and this event was very well blessed. And it was really nice to see our EPC companies coming and demonstrating the kind of talent we have here. Lot of thought process and thought leadership were discussed in that. And, that was the connect. Even I think in this particular event, we see a lot of, members who are speaking from the Digital Built India event that we had. And this is the initiation right now. This is our initiative to right now inspire the community. This is an annual event that will continue. Now we are starting up spikes of like open mic sessions in different regions and different cities where we want the community to come and talk about it. This is our initiative for the people to come together, exchange our learning. Because what we see as a next, probably phase is no more talking about competition, it's about collaboration. Most of the people that we work in CDCP or who attended this event were all competitors to each other. But they were all happy to come together. They said we needed a platform where we can come together and talk about how we can advance, jointly, we can progress jointly, we can learn from each other and we can be more efficient in our processes. Same thing, when we started, we were very open that we don't want to restrict ourselves to India. We want to be open to learn from the international market and to give back to the international market. When we got ourselves registered as the official chapter of Building Smart India, today we are trying to drive and learn Open BIM from an Indian perspective, drive that in Indian community. The moment we start doing that, that is also going to reciprocate the open standards globally. And that was the understanding in the philosophy when we bought, when we kind of signed up for the India chapter of Building Smart. Same thing with the BIM Coordinator Summit. We are celebrating the BIM heroes of India. And that doesn't mean that it is only the people from the BIM industry, but we are celebrating people who are coming from, educational industries, from different kind of, forums. We need to create an environment where we start celebrating digitalization, and that's what we are trying to do, with these initiatives. I talked about, India strategy as a filter. You put that filter and screen any policy. and look at in terms of what you are doing in that particular policy with reference to inspiring the community, with reference to the mandates which are responsible mandates, with reference to the data environment that is more democratic. Abhishek spoke about data drops, the efficiency loss that happens when the data doesn't transition efficiently from design to construction phase. This is not just a problem from an India perspective, this is a global problem. And that is where if we are able to do that efficiently, we'll be in a much better situation. We contributed as one of the knowledge partner to the recent digital twin strategy. Now, a lot of these initiatives are driven by private organizations. But we as a NGO, when we get into those things, we provide our insights. Swaraj and Arun Kumar from our team has been representing and guiding them in terms of developing these standards. And it was released August last year in Delhi. Plus 3 of our board members are already a part of the BIS committees, which is working on BIM standards right now. They're taking feedbacks, whatever inputs we have, they're driving that. From a capacity building perspective, we were very clear, that we have the right knowledge bandwidth. We have that, capability in terms of knowing what probably is the right thing to do, but we are lack of in terms of capacity. And that's where we decided to focus ourselves in terms of doing things which can bring about a change at apex level. Now, we are planning to launch a BIM certification program in tie-up with, where this particular certification program is curated with IIT Bombay and IIT, with the help of IIT Chennai, in terms of creating a program where we will be training the training organizations, and this will be rolled out where we will act as a facilitator to this, and we are expecting a mass rollout. The numbers are yet to be confirmed, but this will be one of the standards where one of the initiatives where we want to bring the international level BIM certification at affordable prices in India. Because some of the standards could be global, very well received, but they're not affordable from an India perspective. From a certification perspective, if we have to spend the money, which is very different kind of a money, SME cannot afford that. So what does we do? So I think in that case, we have to adopt and build up something which is more indigenous and work together on that. So, with that, probably I would like to, end up my session. Very happy to receive any questions. Thank you so much.
Just to add on, the India strategy, what we have developed, it is a combination of both top-down and bottom-up, because top-down is required, because unless you mandate, unless you give the push, it's not going to really work. And the bottom-up is the inspiration, your other areas of aid, etc. That is also required, and that is what is the combination we specifically made it integrated into that so that it really can work.
Any questions?
Yeah, you mentioned that incentivizing players when we ask for BIM and implementing BIM in projects. What exactly did you mean by incentivizing? Because I come from the client side, right? We are the users of that data. Whenever we ask, we benefit. But industry will they won't do it at free, right? Or at a loss. So where does the incentivizing come? Or what did you mean exactly when you said incentivizing the other industry players?
Okay, if you, for example, if you appoint a consultant, a design consultant to work on your project, and you have currently a traditional way of delivering the project, but you expect them to now deliver to your new spec requirement, then there has to be some consideration in the fees that you are keeping with reference to a normal project delivery, which is the traditional one, with reference to the new one, because you must respect that somebody is going to spend more money in equipments, in softwares, resources, and also more time. At the same time, the time that is going to reduce, like for example, if you get a good coordinated drawings, the construction time, the RFIs reduces. So if a contractor is taking up say 20 months, you are facilitating to do that particular thing in maybe 18 months or 17 months. Now that time reduction is your advantage, which you are actually getting, but the stakeholders who are impacted with reference to efforts and cost, there has to be some kind of a consideration from the client side. In my experience, we have seen that we've started mandating, we've started asking, but when it comes to giving due considerations, that framework is missing. Some people in the private sector have started giving considerations to that, where they started kind of giving some kind of I would say relief or a compensatory benefits or some kind of a motivation that if they are able to complete this delivery with this process, there is a motivation for them to work on that. So essentially that is one aspect of incentivization. Second aspect from a government perspective is, there's a lot of investments that is required when the industry moves from your traditional system to the new system, whether it is hardware, software. You spoke about, I think you presented pretty well about the CDE and the cloud-based environment. So there are two kinds of environment where, one environment is an authoring environment where you essentially create the data. And the second environment is a simulation environment where you are analyzing the data, you are adding attributes to it, which can be done on cloud or any softwares. Now, that is the easier part which you can access and do the part, and that doesn't cost you much. The complexity comes up with authoring environment. If your project goes up, you can't open the model because the models are very heavy. Unfortunately, there is no single major Indian OEM available who is selling so you have I was very happy to see, in terms of you presenting the Indian OEMs on the CDE side, but on the authoring side, there is no Indian company there as such. We have some products which are open source products, but those are not mature from a requirement perspective, and we don't have time to experiment because projects are critical. So now the transitional phase where there is an impact to the, kind of that patch of stakeholders, we must give some considerations to them. Does that answer your question?
Say for example, at what Abhishek was mentioning in the morning, that project level, or probably the department level or the state level, you have given the CDE on a free basis. I mean, I'm telling about NCRTC, but at the same time, what he was mentioning about this authoring tools can be also put into in a cloud-based environment, which is financed by the project team or maybe the department, so that it can be used by the SMEs or whoever is creating that content. They can use on a time basis, and it can be it can be charged nominally. So that sort of incentivization also can be considered.
Just to be more clear in what we are saying, you are saying the industry is not updating their estimates as per the new requirement, or because if we mandate it in the contract and then you bid for it and you get it, then you are already getting the price that you asked for, considering the work to be done. Are you saying the industry is not raising the bar, the floor price with the work you are trying to do?
Yeah, it's also about awareness. Most of the time, the supply chain picks up the order without really having the realization of what do you expect. I can give you examples of some very live projects which are going on, large city projects where BIM has been mandated. And today, BIM is only used as the last payment certification where you just have to create the model at the end and they are submitting that model for approval. The use of BIM is not happening there. Now, you can mandate, but if you mandate without doing your supply chain assessment, then you are just pushing something somewhere where you don't know what would be the outcome. So, we have to have some kind of an empathy with the stakeholder that we are engaging with. And that empathy will bring in more positivity into the whole digitalization aspect.
So just to be again clear, you are saying people who made the contract and people who bid the contract both did not understand what they were bidding for.
This may disappear over a period of time, but till the time we are in the transitional phase, there could be several examples that we can place where this is happening. But this is temporary. These are all transitional issues. We don't want to quote any project, but this is natural. This is very natural. There's no, I don't want to kind of say that there's something odd about it. It's business.
Sunil, I'm just going to interrupt here. Sorry. If there are any questions, I'll suggest that please share your questions and we'll try and resolve them.
Thank you.
But we're really running a little late.
Sure.
So any questions, just please put them up for him, and then I'm sure he and you can connect after the session's over.
Thank you so much.